The message arrived at the heart of the Krell Empire on a cold morning that would change everything. It came from the Vaxian Collective, a race so old that even the Krell, who had conquered 400 worlds, treated them with respect. The Vaxians rarely spoke to anyone. When they did, smart people listened. Commander Zarn stood in the command center of his flagship reading the message for the third time. His dark eyes narrowed as he processed the words. The translation was clear, but the meaning seemed impossible. "Do not go to Earth," the message said. "The humans are not what they appear. Their world is a trap. They are predators wearing the skin of civilization. If you attack them, you will regret it. This is not a threat. It is a warning from those who have seen what happens when someone wakes the sleeping beast." Zarn let out a low growl. His second officer, Kren, stood nearby watching his commander's reaction. Kren had served with Zarn for 20 cycles and knew the look on his face. It was the look of a warrior who had just been insulted. "They think we are afraid," Zarn said, his voice cold. "The Vaxians send us warnings like we are children who need protection." "Perhaps we should consider their words," Kren suggested carefully. "The Vaxians have never been wrong before. They do not speak without reason." Zarn turned to face his officer. "We have conquered 400 worlds, Kren, 400. We have faced warriors with claws that could cut through steel. We have fought creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space. We have destroyed civilizations that had weapons we had never seen before. And you want me to fear these humans? These primitives who still use chemical rockets and fight each other over invisible lines on their planet? I only suggest caution, Commander. Caution is for the weak." Zarn walked to the large window that showed the stars beyond. "Look at their planet, Kren. We have been watching them for months. They cannot even agree on how to govern themselves. They have nearly 200 separate nations, all competing with each other. They fight over resources, over beliefs, over land. They are divided and weak. This will be the easiest conquest we have ever achieved." Kren said nothing. He had learned long ago that once Zarn made up his mind, nothing could change it. The commander was a brilliant strategist and a fierce warrior, but he was also proud. Pride had won them many battles. Kren hoped it would not lose them this one. "Send the order," Zarn commanded. "The fleet moves to Earth. We will show the Vaxians that the Krell do not run from primitives." 300 ships began their journey toward the small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. It would take them 3 weeks to arrive. Zarn spent those weeks studying everything they knew about Earth. The information did not impress him. The humans had only recently developed nuclear weapons. They had visited their own moon a few times but had not established any permanent presence beyond their planet. Their fastest ships were laughably slow. Their weapons were crude. They had no shields, no energy weapons, no unified defense force. On paper, Earth should fall within days. But something bothered Zarn, though he would not admit it to anyone. It was something he had noticed in the Vaxian message. They had not called the humans weak. They had called them predators. That word kept echoing in his mind during the long nights of travel. Meanwhile, on Earth, Colonel Jake Morrison sat in a dark room filled with screens and blinking lights. The facility was buried deep under a mountain in Colorado, and very few people knew it existed. Jake had been a soldier for 20 years, and he had seen many strange things, but nothing had prepared him for what he was looking at now. "Are we sure about this?" he asked, his voice steady despite the cold fear growing in his stomach. Dr. Lisa Grant nodded, her fingers dancing across her keyboard. "The readings are clear, Colonel. Something big is coming toward us, very big, and it is not natural." Lisa was young, only 32, but she was the best astrophysicist Jake had ever worked with. She had a gift for seeing patterns where others saw only noise. Right now, her face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. "How big are we talking?" Jake asked. 300 objects, maybe more. Each one is roughly the size of a city block. They are in formation, moving together. They will reach our solar system in approximately 2 weeks. Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He had trained for many scenarios during his military career. Invasions from other countries, terrorist attacks, natural disasters. But alien invasion had always been the stuff of movies and books. Now it was real, and he had to figure out what to do about it. "I need to inform the president," he said quietly. "There is more," Lisa added. "They are slowing down as they approach. They are not trying to hide. It is like they want us to see them coming." "A show of force," Jake muttered. "They want us scared before they even arrive." Within hours, every major government on Earth knew about the approaching fleet. Emergency meetings were called. Military forces were put on high alert. Scientists worked frantically to learn anything they could about the visitors, but deep down everyone knew the truth. If these aliens were hostile, Earth was in serious trouble. The media eventually got wind of the story and panic began to spread. People demanded answers. Governments tried to maintain calm, but it was impossible. For the first time in human history, everyone on the planet was united by a single fear. They were not alone in the universe, and their new neighbors might want them dead. Captain Amy Chen stood on the deck of the USS Defiant, watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. She was 40 years old and had commanded the aircraft carrier for 2 years. She had sailed through storms, dealt with international tensions, and managed a crew of 5,000 sailors. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for what was coming. Her second officer, Commander Phillips, approached her quietly. "Captain, we have received new orders from Pacific Command. We are to maintain battle stations and prepare for possible engagement with unknown hostile forces." Amy nodded slowly. "Unknown hostile forces. That is one way to describe aliens who might want to destroy us. Are we really going to fight them, Captain? I mean, if they have the technology to travel between stars, what chance do we have?" Amy looked at the young officer and saw the fear in his eyes. She felt it too, but she could not show it. Leaders were not allowed to be afraid even when they had every reason to be. "We fight because that is what humans do, Commander. We do not surrender. We do not give up. If they want our planet, they will have to take it from our cold, dead hands." Phillips smiled weakly. "Yes, ma'am." As darkness fell over the ocean, Amy looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, 300 alien warships were coming closer. In 2 weeks, maybe less, the world would change forever. Either humanity would survive, or they would become just another species that the Krell had conquered. But Amy had a feeling, deep in her gut, that the Krell had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were weak because they fought among themselves. They thought humans were primitive because their technology was inferior. They did not understand that humans had spent their entire existence fighting for survival. Every day on Earth was a battle against nature, against disease, against each other. Humans had learned to thrive in the harshest conditions. They had learned to turn everything into a weapon. They had learned that losing was not an option. The Vaxians had tried to warn the Krell, but it was already too late. The trap was set. The predators were waiting, and soon the Krell would learn why Earth was a planet that should have been left alone. The Krell fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Commander Zarn watched through the main view screen as the small blue planet came into view. It looked peaceful from this distance, almost innocent. He smiled coldly. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered. 3 Krell destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward Earth. Their mission was simple: destroy enough targets to show the humans that resistance was pointless. Zarn expected the planet to surrender within hours. Most civilizations did once they saw what the Krell could do. The destroyers opened fire on communication satellites orbiting Earth. Brilliant flashes of light marked each destruction. Then they targeted military bases in North America, Europe, and Asia. Energy beams cut through the atmosphere, turning installations into craters within seconds. The message was clear: surrender or die. Zarn waited for the response. He expected pleas for mercy, offers of negotiation, or perhaps just silence as the humans realized how outmatched they were. What he got instead surprised him. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from one of their naval vessels," his communications officer reported. "Play it," Zarn commanded. A human woman appeared on the screen. She wore a military uniform and her face showed no fear, only cold determination. "This is Captain Amy Chen of the USS Defiant. You have attacked our world without provocation. This is an act of war. We will defend our home with everything we have. You want to fight? You have got one." The transmission ended. Zarn stared at the screen in disbelief. "Did she just threaten us?" "It appears so, Commander," Kren replied quietly. "Foolish. Send fighters to destroy her ship. Make an example of her." 30 Krell dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere toward the Pacific Ocean, where Amy Chen's carrier waited with its battle group. The alien craft were sleek and fast, armed with energy weapons that could tear through steel like paper. Amy stood in the carrier's command center, surrounded by screens and officers. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. "All fighters launch now. All ships, weapons free. Hit them with everything we have." Fighter jets roared off the carrier's deck, climbing rapidly to meet the descending alien craft. The pilots knew they were probably going to die, but not one of them hesitated. This was their planet, their home, their families below. They would fight until their last breath. The first engagement was brutal. Krell energy weapons shot down several human fighters within seconds, but the pilots adapted quickly. They stopped flying in predictable patterns and started using maneuvers that no sane pilot would attempt. They dove at extreme angles, pulled turns that should have killed them, and pushed their aircraft beyond safety limits. Lieutenant Brandon Hayes scored the first kill. His missiles could not penetrate the alien shields, so he did something insane. He flew his damaged fighter directly into a Krell dropship, crashing through its hull at over 500 miles per hour. Both craft exploded in a massive fireball. The Krell pilots were shocked. In all their battles across the galaxy, they had never seen an enemy deliberately destroy themselves to take down a single opponent. It made no tactical sense. It was wasteful and irrational, but it worked. Other human pilots saw what Brandon had done. When their weapons ran out, when their planes were too damaged to continue, they did the same thing. They turned their fighters into missiles, ramming Krell craft with suicidal determination. Within 20 minutes, 15 Krell dropships were destroyed. The remaining alien craft retreated back to orbit, leaving the human fleet battered but victorious. Amy Chen watched them go, her face grim. They had won this round, but she knew it was just the beginning. On the ground, the Krell were learning another hard lesson about humans. Sergeant Danny Rivers crouched behind a destroyed car in what used to be downtown Denver. His Marine platoon was spread out across 2 city blocks waiting for the enemy. They had seen the Krell dropships land an hour ago, and now alien soldiers were advancing through the streets. The Krell soldiers were impressive. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Energy shields shimmered around them. Their weapons could melt concrete. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. Danny waited until they were close, very close. Then he gave the signal. Explosions erupted from every direction. The Marines had spent the past hour wiring the entire area with improvised bombs made from whatever they could find. Gas canisters, fertilizer, old propane tanks. The Krell shields protected them from the initial blasts, but the shrapnel and debris that followed found gaps in their defenses. Several aliens fell. The others scattered, taking cover behind buildings. They had expected the humans to run or hide. Instead, they had walked into an ambush. "Snipers, take your shots," Danny ordered into his radio. From rooftops and windows, Marine snipers opened fire. Their bullets could not penetrate Krell shields on the first shot, but they had figured out something important. The shields needed a moment to recharge between hits. If you hit the same spot 3 or 4 times in rapid succession, the shield would fail. More Krell soldiers dropped. The aliens began to panic, something their commander said was impossible. They returned fire wildly, destroying buildings but hitting very few humans. The Marines kept moving, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. One group of Krell soldiers tried to fall back to their dropship. Danny and 5 Marines cut them off. The aliens were better armed and better armored, but the humans fought with a savageness that shocked them. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When the knives broke, they used rocks and bare hands. One Marine, Corporal Jimmy Barnes, tackled a Krell soldier and beat him to death with his helmet. The Krell commander on the ground tried to contact his ship for evacuation. Before he could finish the transmission, Danny shot him twice in the head. The alien shield had failed after taking sniper fire seconds earlier. The remaining Krell soldiers, leaderless and terrified, attempted to surrender. Danny did not speak their language, but he understood their gestures. They were dropping their weapons and raising their hands. For a moment, Danny considered accepting their surrender. Then he remembered the military base in Nevada that the Krell had destroyed. The 300 soldiers who had died in the first attack. The families who would never see their loved ones again. "No prisoners," he said quietly. His Marines hesitated for only a second. Then they opened fire. The Krell soldiers died where they stood. Commander Zarn watched the reports coming in from the surface and from orbit. The numbers did not make sense. His forces were winning in terms of overall casualties, but they were taking far more losses than projected. The humans were supposed to be primitive and disorganized. Instead, they were fighting like cornered animals using tactics that defied military logic. They are not retreating, Kren observed. Even when our forces have them surrounded, even when survival is impossible, they do not surrender. They fight until they die. Irrational, Zarn muttered. Completely irrational, perhaps, but effective. The worst reports came from the ground forces. Krell soldiers were trained warriors, experienced in hundreds of battles, but they were not prepared for an enemy that fought with such desperate ferocity. The humans did not care about tactical advantages or strategic positions. They only cared about killing as many invaders as possible before they died. In Russia, a Krell battalion was lured into an abandoned factory. Human soldiers detonated the building's gas lines, killing everyone inside, including themselves. In Brazil, guerrilla fighters used the jungle terrain to pick off alien patrols one by one. In Japan, civilians joined the military in attacking Krell positions with whatever weapons they could find. The Krell were winning battles, but each victory cost more than it should. Zarn began to understand what the Vaxians had tried to warn him about. These humans were not like other species. They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for survival, and they would rather die than lose. In space, Captain Amy Chen prepared for the next assault. Her carrier had taken damage, but it was still operational. More importantly, her crew's morale was high. They had proven that the aliens could be killed. The enemy was not invincible. "Captain, we are receiving reports from other naval groups," Commander Phillips said. "The aliens are pulling back from several areas. It seems our resistance is making them reconsider their strategy." Amy nodded. "Good, but do not get comfortable. They will come back stronger. We need to be ready." She looked at the faces of her officers. They were scared, exhausted, and many were injured. But they were also determined. They had tasted victory, and they wanted more. Commander Zarn made a decision. The humans were more troublesome than expected, but they were still just primitives. He would commit more forces, overwhelm their defenses, and crush their resistance. The Krell Empire had never failed to conquer a world. Earth would not be the first. "Prepare for full-scale invasion," he ordered. "Deploy all ground forces, target their major cities, show them that resistance is futile." Kren said nothing, but his concern grew. The humans had already proven they did not understand the concept of futility. They only understood fighting. And if there was one thing the Krell were learning, it was that humans were very, very good at fighting. The Krell invasion entered its second week, and Commander Zarn was beginning to doubt his own judgment. His fleet controlled Earth's orbit and had established bases on every continent, but the humans refused to accept defeat. Worse, something strange was happening to his ground forces. In the Amazon rainforest, Captain Rek led a battalion of Krell soldiers through the dense jungle. Their mission was to secure a human research facility that intelligence suggested contained valuable information. What they found instead was a nightmare. The jungle itself seemed to attack them. Small flying insects bit through gaps in their armor, injecting venom that caused paralysis. Larger creatures hidden in the trees dropped onto soldiers and ripped through protective suits. Plants with thorns cut exposed skin, and the cuts became infected within hours. "Commander Rek, we have lost 12 soldiers to local wildlife," his second reported, "and 20 more are showing signs of infection from unknown pathogens." Rek stared at the dying soldiers being carried on stretchers. Their skin had turned dark colors, and they were burning with fever. The medical officers had no idea what was wrong with them. The Krell had advanced medicine, but they had no defense against Earth's bacteria and viruses. Their immune systems had never encountered anything like them. "Fall back to the landing zone," Rek ordered. "This entire planet is poisonous." Similar reports came from Krell forces around the world. In Africa, soldiers contracted diseases that killed them within days. In Southeast Asia, parasites infected their water supply. In Australia, venomous snakes and spiders caused more casualties than human weapons. Earth was not just inhabited by humans. It was a death world where everything had evolved to kill. Lieutenant Greg Palmer watched the Krell base in Kenya through his binoculars. He was Special Forces, trained for operations behind enemy lines. His team had been observing the alien compound for 3 days, studying their routines and looking for weaknesses. "They have good security," his teammate Sergeant Kyle Foster whispered. "Motion sensors, automated defenses, patrols every hour. Getting in there will be suicide," Greg smiled. "Then we will not get in. We will let Africa do the work for us." Over the next 2 days, Greg's team did not attack the base. Instead, they sabotaged the Krell water filtration system introducing local bacteria into their supply. They also destroyed the perimeter defenses in several locations, creating gaps that local wildlife could exploit. Within 48 hours, the Krell base was in chaos. Soldiers fell ill by the dozens. Mosquitoes carrying malaria swarmed into the compound. Larger predators, attracted by the smell of the sick and dying, attacked soldiers on patrol. The aliens tried to evacuate, but many were too sick to move. Greg and his team watched from a safe distance as the base collapsed. They never fired a single shot. "That is how you fight on Earth," Greg said quietly. "You let the planet do the killing for you." Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Grant was making discoveries that would change the war. Working in her lab in Colorado, she studied pieces of destroyed Krell technology that had been recovered from battle sites. She was particularly interested in their energy shields. "Colonel Morrison, I think I have found something," she called out excitedly. Jake entered the lab looking exhausted. He had not slept properly in weeks. "Good news, I hope." "The best. Look at this." Lisa pulled up a series of graphs on her computer. The Krell shields work by creating an electromagnetic field around the user. It is very advanced technology, but it has a weakness. Hit it with a strong electromagnetic pulse and the shield collapses completely, not just for a moment. It burns out the generator. Jake felt hope rise in his chest for the first time in days. "Can we create weapons that do this?" "Already working on it. Give me 72 hours and I can have prototypes ready for testing." Jake grabbed her shoulders, his eyes bright. "Lisa, if this works, you might have just saved humanity." She smiled tiredly. "Let us test it first before we start celebrating." True to her word, Lisa and her team developed EMP weapons that could be deployed on a large scale. They were not elegant, essentially modified versions of existing military technology, but they worked. When tested against captured Krell shields, the results were perfect. The shields failed instantly, leaving the aliens vulnerable. The information was shared with military forces worldwide. Within a week, human soldiers were equipped with EMP grenades, rifles, and vehicle-mounted systems. The war was about to change. The Battle of New York became the turning point. The Krell had occupied Manhattan, using it as a major command center. Their mechs, massive walking machines armed with devastating weapons, patrolled the streets, crushing any resistance. Major Chris Taylor led an armored division tasked with retaking the city. He had 200 tanks, 3,000 soldiers, and the new EMP weapons. He also had something else: intimate knowledge of every street, building, and sewer tunnel in Manhattan. "Remember," he told his officers over the radio, "hit them with EMP first. Once their shields are down, they die just like anything else. Use the buildings for cover. Use the subway tunnels for movement. This is our city, and we are taking it back." The battle began at dawn. Human tanks rolled through the streets, firing EMP rounds at Krell mechs. The alien machines' shields flickered and died. Follow-up shots with conventional weapons tore through their armor. Within the first hour, 15 mechs were destroyed. The Krell responded by sending in more forces, including infantry and air support. But Chris had anticipated this. His soldiers used the buildings themselves as weapons, collapsing structures onto enemy positions. They emerged from subway tunnels behind alien lines, attacking from unexpected directions. They used sniper teams on rooftops to pick off officers and communications specialists. The Krell were better armed and better armored, but they were fighting in an urban environment designed by humans, for humans. Every street corner was a potential ambush. Every building could hide 100 soldiers. The aliens found themselves surrounded, confused and dying. By nightfall, the Krell were in full retreat. Their command center was destroyed, and more than half their forces in the city were dead. Major Chris Taylor stood in Times Square, surrounded by burning alien vehicles and celebrating soldiers. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had won a major battle. Commander Zarn received the news in his command center aboard the flagship. He stared at the casualty reports, unable to believe what he was seeing. The Krell had lost an entire division. An entire division. To primitives with crude weapons and no space technology. "Commander, we are receiving another message from the Vaxian Collective," his communications officer reported nervously. "Put it through," Zarn said, his voice hollow. The Vaxian ambassador appeared on the screen. The ancient alien's face showed no emotion, but his words were heavy with meaning. "We warned you, Commander Zarn. We told you that Earth was a trap. Did you think we were exaggerating?
Did you think we were afraid?
Let me explain something that you have clearly failed to understand. Earth is not a paradise world like most inhabited planets. It is a death world. Everything on that planet has spent billions of years learning to survive against impossible odds. The humans are not weak because they fight each other. They are strong because they fight each other. Every day on Earth is a battle. Every generation produces survivors who are tougher than the last. You invaded a planet of predators and now they have your scent. The transmission ended, leaving Zarn alone with his thoughts. He knew with cold certainty that the Vaxians were right. The invasion was failing. His soldiers were dying to human weapons, Earth diseases, and the planet's own wildlife. The humans were not surrendering. If anything, they were fighting harder with each passing day. "Commander, what are your orders?" Kren asked quietly. Zarn wanted to order a retreat. Pride had brought them here, and pride was killing them, but he could not give up. The Krell Empire did not retreat. They did not lose. If he withdrew now, his career was over, his honor destroyed. "We will continue the invasion," he said finally. "But we will change our strategy. No more ground bases in hostile environments. We will focus on major population centers where we can control the terrain. And we will target their infrastructure, power, water, communications. Break their will to fight." Kren nodded, but both of them knew the truth. They were no longer trying to conquer Earth. They were trying to survive long enough to salvage something from this disaster. On Earth, humanity sensed the shift. The aliens were weakening, making mistakes, pulling back from areas they had once controlled. Leaders from every nation met in emergency sessions, coordinating their efforts for the first time in history. Colonel Jake Morrison, now promoted to general, stood before the United Earth Defense Council. "The Krell are on their heels," he said. "We have proven that they can be beaten. Now we need to go on the offensive. We need to take the fight to them, drive them off our planet, and make sure they never come back." Captain Amy Chen added, "And we need to hit them in orbit. As long as they control space, they can reinforce and resupply. We have to cut off their supply lines," the Council agreed. Humanity was done playing defense. It was time to show the Krell what humans could do when they stopped holding back. The war entered its third month, and Earth was no longer on the defensive. General Jake Morrison stood in the newly established United Earth Command Center, watching multiple screens showing operations across the globe. Human forces were pushing back against the Krell on every continent. "General, we have confirmation from the South American front," an officer reported. "The Krell base in Argentina has been destroyed. Enemy forces are retreating toward their landing zones." Jake nodded, marking another victory on the strategic map. The tide had turned completely. The Krell were no longer invaders. They were prey. In Nevada, Sergeant Danny Rivers, now promoted to lieutenant, led the assault on the Krell's main ground base. It was their largest installation on Earth, housing over 5,000 alien soldiers and containing vital command equipment. Taking it would deal a crushing blow to the invasion force. Danny's forces numbered only 2,000. But they had something the Krell did not: knowledge of the terrain and absolute determination. "Remember the plan," Danny told his team leaders over the radio. "We have been digging tunnels for 2 weeks. We hit them from below, where they are not expecting us. Use the EMP weapons first, then conventional arms. No mercy. These things destroyed our cities and killed our people. Make them pay for every inch of ground." The attack began at midnight. Explosions ripped through the Krell base as charges planted in the tunnels detonated. Entire sections collapsed into the underground passages Danny's engineers had created. Krell soldiers stumbled out of their barracks, confused and disoriented. Human forces poured out of the tunnels, firing EMP weapons that disabled alien shields. What followed was not a battle. It was a slaughter. The Krell tried to organize a defense, but they were surrounded, outnumbered, and fighting in darkness against an enemy that had trained for exactly this scenario. Danny personally led the assault on the command center. His team breached the reinforced doors with shaped charges and stormed inside. Krell officers tried to mount a last stand, but they fell within minutes. Danny stood over the body of the base commander, breathing heavily. "This is for Earth," he whispered, then ordered his troops to plant demolition charges throughout the facility. When the base exploded, the blast could be seen from space. Commander Zarn watched from his flagship, his face expressionless. That base had represented months of effort and thousands of his soldiers. Now it was gone, destroyed by an enemy that was supposed to be primitive. Commander, we have lost contact with 7 more ground installations. Kren reported. The humans are systematically destroying every position we have established. Our forces on the surface are requesting immediate evacuation. Denied, Zarn said coldly. If we abandon the surface, we lose any chance of victory. We hold our positions until reinforcements arrive from the Empire. Commander, with respect, reinforcements will take months to arrive. Our soldiers are dying by the thousands every day. We cannot hold. Zarn turned to face his second officer, his eyes burning with anger and desperation. We will hold because we have no other choice. The Empire does not tolerate failure. If we retreat, we will be executed for cowardice. Our only option is to fight until we win or until we die. In orbit, Captain Amy Chen prepared for the most dangerous mission of her life. She stood in the briefing room of a modified space shuttle, surrounded by 30 astronauts and Marines from 12 different countries. They were the best of the best, volunteers for a mission that no one expected to survive. Our objective is the Krell flagship, Amy explained, pointing to a 3-dimensional image of the massive ship. It is their command and control center. If we destroy it, their entire fleet loses coordination. Intelligence suggests the ship's commander, Zarn, is desperate. That makes him dangerous, but it also makes him vulnerable. How do we even get close to that thing? Asked Commander Phillips, who had insisted on joining the mission despite Amy's objections. Their defenses will shoot us down before we get within a mile. We are not going to approach it. We are going to let it capture us. Amy smiled at the shocked faces around her. The Krell have been capturing some of our satellites and ships to study our technology. We are going to disguise our shuttle as a disabled vessel, let them bring us into their hangar bay, and then fight our way to the ship's core. We will plant nuclear devices at key points and set them to detonate simultaneously. That is insane, someone muttered. Yes, Amy agreed, but it will work. The Krell think we are primitive. They do not expect us to bring the fight to them in space. We are going to show them how wrong they are. The mission launched 2 days later. Amy's team disabled their shuttle's engines and sent out a distress signal in a frequency they knew the Krell monitored. As predicted, a Krell cruiser approached to capture what they thought was a helpless human vessel. The aliens used a tractor beam to pull the shuttle into their hangar bay. As soon as the bay doors closed behind them, Amy's team exploded into action. They wore stolen Krell armor, taken from dead soldiers and modified to fit humans. It was not perfect, but in the chaos of a boarding action, it might buy them precious seconds. They stormed out of the shuttle, firing EMP weapons at the surprised Krell guards. The aliens' shields failed, and conventional bullets finished the job. Within 2 minutes, the hangar was secured. Team Alpha, secure the corridor. Team Bravo, plant charges here. Team Charlie, you are with me. We are going to the ship's core, Amy ordered. Fighting through a Krell warship was like navigating a nightmare. The corridors were too tall for humans, designed for the aliens' greater height. The gravity was slightly different, making movement awkward. And enemy soldiers were everywhere. But Amy's team had trained for this. They moved fast, used grenades to clear rooms, and never stopped pushing forward. They took casualties, 7 dead in the first 10 minutes, but they kept going. There was no retreat. There was only the mission. Lieutenant Brandon Hayes' brother, Lieutenant Kevin Hayes, led Team Bravo. He planted nuclear devices at strategic points throughout the ship, setting them to detonate on Amy's command. Each device was small, barely the size of a backpack, but together they would tear the massive ship apart. Charges planted, Kevin reported over the radio. We are heading for the extraction point. Negative, Amy replied. No extraction. We are not getting off this ship alive. Plant charges at your current location and prepare for final stand. We are taking this ship down with us. There was a pause, then Kevin's voice came back steady and calm. Understood, Captain. It has been an honor. Amy's team reached the ship's power core, a massive chamber filled with pulsing energy. She ordered her Marines to set up defensive positions while she personally planted the final charges. Krell soldiers were closing in from all directions, alerted to the intruders in their ship's heart. The fighting was desperate. Human soldiers held doorways against waves of alien warriors. They ran out of ammunition and switched to knives. When the knives broke, they used tools, rocks, even their bare hands. Every second they bought was another second for Amy to complete her task. Commander Zarn realized what was happening too late. His security teams reported intruders in the power core, humans who had somehow boarded his flagship. He rushed to the command center, ordering all available forces to stop them. Commander, the intruders have planted explosive devices throughout the ship. A panicked officer reported. We cannot defuse them in time. Zarn felt cold dread wash over him. Evacuate the ship. All personnel to escape pods immediately. But there was no time. Amy Chen stood in the power core, her team dead around her, blood running down her face from a dozen wounds. She held the detonator in her hand and smiled. This is for Earth, she said, and pressed the button. The Krell flagship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire that lit up the night sky on Earth below. Every human who saw it cheered. Captain Amy Chen and her team had sacrificed themselves to destroy the enemy's command ship. They had proven that humans could fight back even in space, even against impossible odds. Commander Zarn died in the explosion, along with his entire command staff and 3,000 Krell soldiers. The remaining fleet, suddenly leaderless, fell into chaos. Individual ships tried to continue the fight, but without coordination, they were vulnerable. General Jake Morrison watched the tactical situation from Earth. The Krell fleet was breaking apart. Some ships were fleeing the solar system. Others were fighting each other as different officers tried to take command. It was time to finish this. Launch all orbital strike packages, he ordered. I want every Krell ship that remains in our system destroyed. No survivors, no mercy. Missiles and kinetic weapons launched from Earth's surface targeting the disorganized alien fleet. The Krell had superior shields and weapons, but they were in disarray. Human forces swarmed them like wolves bringing down a wounded bear. In the Amazon, in Africa, in Asia, human forces hunted down the remaining Krell ground troops. The aliens were desperate now, trying to reach evacuation points, but the humans were relentless. They had tasted victory, and they wanted more. Lieutenant Greg Palmer ambushed a Krell evacuation convoy in Kenya. His team destroyed their transports and killed every alien trying to escape. No prisoners, no mercy. The same scenes played out across the world. The Krell Empire, which had conquered 400 worlds, was being destroyed by Pry. 3 months after the Krell flagship exploded, Earth was a different world. The scattered nations that had spent centuries fighting each other had united under a single purpose. The invasion had burned away old hatreds and replaced them with something new. The knowledge that humanity was not alone, and that survival meant working together. General Jake Morrison stood in the brand new Earth Defense Headquarters, built in Geneva where the old United Nations used to meet. The building was surrounded by wreckage from the war, destroyed Krell vehicles, damaged human tanks, and memorials to the millions who had died. But inside, humanity was building its future. General, the last Krell ground forces have been eliminated in Australia, an officer reported. We have confirmed 0 hostile contacts anywhere on the planet. Jake allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Earth was free. The Krell invasion force had been destroyed completely. Of the 300 ships that had arrived, only 12 had managed to escape back into deep space. And they had not left because they were allowed to. They had left because they were running for their lives. What is the status of our space program? Jake asked. Ahead of schedule, sir. Dr. Lisa Grant reports that we have successfully reverse-engineered Krell faster-than-light drives. We should have our first operational ship within 6 months. She is calling it the ESS Valiant. Jake smiled. Earth spaceship. Humanity was no longer bound to a single planet. They were about to become a spacefaring species, and they were going to do it with technology taken from their defeated enemies. Dr. Lisa Grant was exhausted but excited. She stood in a massive hangar that had been built specifically for humanity's first interstellar vessel. The ship was still under construction, but its skeleton was complete. It looked like a fusion of human and Krell design. Brutal, efficient, and powerful. How fast will it go? Asked a visiting dignitary. With the Krell drives? We can reach Alpha Centauri in 2 weeks. Before the invasion, that trip would have taken us thousands of years. The Krell gave us the keys to the galaxy, though I do not think they meant to. Lieutenant Danny Rivers, now Lieutenant Colonel after multiple battlefield promotions, walked through the ruins of the Krell base in Nevada. Engineers were dismantling the alien technology, shipping it to research facilities around the world. Humanity was learning everything they could from their defeated enemies. Hard to believe we won, said Major Kyle Foster, who had served with Danny since the first days of the invasion. We did not just win, Danny replied. We destroyed them. They came here thinking we were weak and we sent them running. I want to make sure everyone in the galaxy knows what happens when you attack Earth." Danny was not alone in that sentiment. Across Earth, military forces were being reorganized into a unified defense structure. Every nation contributed troops, technology, and resources. For the first time in human history, there was a true world government focused on a single goal: making sure Earth was never vulnerable again. The Vaxian Collective made official contact 6 months after the war ended. Their ambassador arrived in a small ship that appeared in orbit without warning. The message was clear. They meant no harm and wanted to talk. The meeting took place in Geneva, with representatives from every nation present. The Vaxian ambassador was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like water. When it spoke, its voice was translated by advanced technology. "We come to formally welcome humanity to the galactic community," the ambassador said, "though you have already announced your presence in a rather dramatic fashion." General Jake Morrison, now the head of Earth Defense Forces, responded, "You tried to warn the Krell, they did not listen. We are grateful you attempted to prevent the invasion, even though it failed." "We were not surprised they ignored us," the Vaxian replied. "The Krell were old and powerful, but they were also arrogant. They believed their technology made them invincible. They did not understand that survival is not about technology. It is about adaptability, determination, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to protect your home." "You seem to know a lot about humans," Dr. Lisa Grant observed. "We do. You are not the first humans we have encountered." That statement caused a stir in the room. The Vaxian waited for quiet before continuing. "Across the galaxy, on different worlds, parallel evolution has created species similar to yours. Bipedal, intelligent, aggressive. Some call them humans, some call them other names. But they all share certain characteristics. You evolved on death worlds, planets where survival is a daily struggle. Your evolution was shaped by predators, diseases, hostile environments, and competition with your own kind. Every generation produced survivors who were tougher and smarter than the last." The ambassador's eyes seemed to look through them. The Krell came from a paradise world. Their evolution was gentle. They developed intelligence without the need for constant warfare. When they discovered space travel, they conquered other peaceful species easily. But they made a fatal mistake when they came to Earth. They confused technological superiority with true strength. "What is true strength?" Jake asked. "The willingness to sacrifice everything for survival, the ability to adapt to any situation, the refusal to accept defeat even when defeat seems certain. Humans possess these traits in abundance. You do not fight for conquest or glory. You fight for survival, and a species fighting for survival is the most dangerous thing in the universe." The Vaxian ambassador pulled up a holographic display showing multiple star systems. "Let me show you something. Here, here, and here. 3 worlds where species similar to humans evolved. In each case, they were invaded by technologically superior civilizations. In each case, the invaders were destroyed. One human world was invaded by the Grath Empire, which had conquered 200 planets. The humans killed them all. Another was attacked by the Zek Collective. The humans boarded their ships and slaughtered them in space. Your species, in all its forms across the galaxy, has never lost a defensive war." The room was silent as humans absorbed this information. They were not unique. They were part of a larger pattern, and that pattern terrified the rest of the galaxy. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. "Now we offer you membership in the Galactic Council. Most species spend centuries developing space travel on their own. You have accelerated your timeline significantly by reverse engineering Krell technology. You will have interstellar ships within a year. You will encounter other civilizations. Some will be friendly. Others will not. We want to ensure you understand how the galaxy works. Over the next months, humanity learned the truth about their place in the universe. The galaxy was full of life. Thousands of intelligent species, millions of worlds. Most civilizations were peaceful, trading and sharing knowledge. But some were predators like the Krell who expanded through conquest. The news of the Krell's defeat spread quickly. The story became legend. A primitive species had destroyed one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The humans had not just won. They had annihilated their enemies completely. Other civilizations that had been planning to invade Earth quietly abandoned their plans. No one wanted to become the next Krell. The Vaxian warning became common knowledge across the galaxy. Earth is not to be touched. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Rivers stood on the bridge of the ESS Valiant, humanity's first faster-than-light warship. He had been chosen to command the initial mission beyond the solar system. Their objective was to locate the remnants of the Krell fleet and ensure they posed no future threat. All systems ready. "Colonel," the ship's pilot reported. "Take us out," Danny ordered. The Valiant accelerated, passing through the solar system in minutes. As they approached the edge of human space, Danny looked at the screens showing the vast emptiness ahead. Somewhere out there, 12 Krell ships were hiding. They would find them. They would destroy them, and they would send a message to the galaxy. Earth was no longer a target. It was a threat. General Jake Morrison watched from Earth as the Valiant disappeared into faster-than-light travel. He felt pride mixed with concern. Humanity was entering the galactic stage, but they were entering it as warriors. The war had changed them. They were no longer divided nations fighting each other. They were a unified species with a common purpose: survival. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," an officer said. "It is from deep space." "Not one of ours." "Put it through," a message appeared on the screen. It was in an alien language, but the translation software worked. The message was from the Tarkon Empire to its invasion fleet. "Abort operation in Sector 7. Intelligence confirms dominant species is human. Recommend immediate withdrawal. We cannot afford another Krell scenario." Jake smiled coldly. The galaxy had been warned. Earth was a trap, and now it was too late to contain what humanity had become. On a distant world, in a council chamber filled with alien species, the Vaxian ambassador addressed the gathered representatives. "We must acknowledge the new reality," the Vaxian said. "Humanity has entered the galactic community. They possess technology they took from the Krell. They have unified their world under a single government, and they have proven beyond any doubt that they are not to be underestimated." "Are they a threat to us?" asked a delegate from a water-dwelling species. "That depends on us," the Vaxian replied. "Humanity is dangerous when threat." 5 years had passed since the Krell invasion ended. Earth had transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible before the war. Where there had once been divided nations fighting over borders and resources, there was now a unified world government focused on exploration and defense. General Jake Morrison, now approaching 60, walked through the orbital shipyard that humanity had built using captured Krell technology and Vaxian assistance. Dozens of ships were under construction, each one a testament to how far humans had come in such a short time. "It is beautiful, is it not?" Dr. Lisa Grant said, joining him at the observation window. She looked older too, with gray streaks in her hair, but her eyes still held the same brilliant curiosity that had helped humanity win the war. "Terrifying is more like it," Jake replied. 5 years ago, we could barely get satellites into orbit. Now we are building a fleet that could conquer half the galaxy. Will we? Lisa asked quietly. Conquer, I mean. Now that we have the power, will we become what the Krell were? Jake was silent for a long moment, watching construction drones weld hull plates onto a new destroyer. I hope not, but I worry about it every day. The Earth Space Forces now numbered 50 warships, with 100 more planned. They were not as advanced as the best ships in the galaxy, but they were sufficient. More importantly, they were crewed by humans who had learned warfare the hard way. Every captain, every officer, every soldier had survived the Krell invasion. They knew what it meant to fight for survival. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Rivers, promoted to colonel after his successful hunt of the Krell survivors, commanded the ESS Striker, a destroyer assigned to patrol the border of human space. His mission was to intercept any threats before they reached Earth. Colonel, we are detecting a ship approaching from outside our territory, his sensor officer reported. It is broadcasting Vaxian identification codes. Let them through, Danny ordered. But keep weapons ready. Just in case. The Vaxian ship docked with the Striker an hour later. The ambassador who had first welcomed humanity to the galactic community stepped onto the bridge accompanied by 2 guards. Colonel Rivers, the Vaxian said, I bring a message from the Galactic Council. They wish to formally invite Earth to send delegates to the next summit. It is time for humanity to take its place among the stars. Danny studied the alien carefully. And what place is that? Are we members or are we curiosities? Are we partners or are we threats that need to be watched? The Vaxian smiled, an expression that looked strange on its shimmering features. You are all of those things, Colonel. You are members because you have proven you can defend yourselves. You are curiosities because your rapid advancement fascinates everyone. You are partners because you have valuable resources and knowledge to trade. And yes, you are threats because every species remembers what you did to the Krell. Good, Danny said simply. Fear keeps people honest. When do we leave for this summit? On Earth, the selection of delegates to represent humanity at the Galactic Council became a major event. Every nation wanted their people included. After weeks of debate, a compromise was reached. General Jake Morrison would lead the delegation as the primary representative. Dr. Lisa Grant would serve as the chief scientific advisor, and representing the military forces that had defended Earth, Colonel Danny Rivers would accompany them as security chief. The journey to the Galactic Council station took 2 weeks, even with faster-than-light drives. The station itself was massive, a structure built over thousands of years by dozens of species. It orbited a neutron star in neutral space, accessible to all but controlled by none. As the human shuttle approached the docking bay, Jake felt a mix of emotions. Pride, certainly. Earth had earned its place here through blood and sacrifice. But also caution. The galaxy was vast and humanity was still learning its rules. Remember, he told his team before they disembarked, we are not here to make threats or show off our weapons. We are here to learn, to trade, and to establish diplomatic relations. But if anyone tries to intimidate us or treat us like primitives, we remind them politely what happened to the Krell. The council chamber was enormous, with seating for representatives from over 300 species. Some were humanoid, others were radically different, floating gas beings, crystalline entities, and things that Jake could not even classify. All of them turned to watch as the human delegation entered. A Vaxian stood at the center podium and spoke in a voice that was simultaneously translated into every language present. We welcome the delegation from Earth. They are the newest members of our community, having proven their capability and strength in the recent conflict with the Krell Empire. There were murmurs throughout the chamber. Some species seemed welcoming. Others appeared suspicious or fearful. The humans wished to address the council. The Vaxian continued. We grant them the floor. Jake walked to the podium, very aware that he was representing not just Earth, but humanity's entire future in the galaxy. He spoke clearly and calmly. Thank you for welcoming us. We come here seeking peaceful relations with all species. We do not desire conquest or domination. We simply want to protect our home, trade with our neighbors, and learn from the ancient civilizations that have been exploring the stars for millions of years. A delegate from the Tarkon Empire, the same species that had aborted their invasion plans, stood up. You say you seek peace, but your military buildup suggests otherwise. You are constructing warships at an alarming rate. You have fortified your entire solar system. You have sent armed vessels into deep space. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. Jake met the alien's eyes. You are correct. We are building defenses. We are training soldiers. We are preparing for war. Do you know why? Because we learned a hard lesson when the Krell invaded. We learned that peace is not guaranteed. We learned that there are predators in this galaxy who see weakness as opportunity. We will never be weak again. We will never be unprepared again. If that makes you uncomfortable, I apologize. But we would rather have you uncomfortable than have our planet conquered. There was silence in the chamber. Then, surprisingly, several delegates began to applaud. It started with some of the smaller species, those who had been conquered before and knew what it meant to be defenseless. Soon more joined in. An elderly delegate from a species called the Kryn stood up. I remember when my world was invaded 300 years ago. We had no weapons, no defenses. We believed in peace and thought everyone else did too. We were wrong. The invaders killed billions before the Vaxians intervened. I envy you humans. You fought back, you won. Never apologize for that. Over the following days, the human delegation met with dozens of species. Some wanted to establish trade agreements for Earth's unique resources. Others wanted to share technology in exchange for human military tactics and strategies. A few wanted to form defensive alliances, seeing humanity as potential protectors against aggressive empires. Dr. Lisa Grant found herself particularly popular among scientists. Her work reverse engineering Krell technology had impressed the galactic community. She attended symposiums where she learned about advances in medicine, physics, and engineering that would take Earth decades to discover on their own. They are so advanced, she told Jake one evening. Some of these species have been spacefaring for millions of years. We are babies in comparison. But we are babies with teeth, Jake replied. Never forget that. Technology is not everything. The Krell had better technology than us, and we still destroyed them. Colonel Danny Rivers spent his time meeting with military officers from various species. He was surprised to find that many of them wanted to learn from humanity. The tactics that humans had developed during the invasion, guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, using the environment as a weapon, were completely foreign to species that fought traditional set-piece battles. How do you train your soldiers to be so aggressive? Asked a Kryn general. Our troops are brave, but they retreat when casualties become too high. Your soldiers fought until death in situations where victory was impossible. Danny considered his answer carefully. We do not train them to be suicidal. We train them to value something more than their own lives, their families, their homes, their species. When you fight for something greater than yourself, death becomes acceptable. It is not preferred, but it is acceptable if it means protecting what you love. The general nodded slowly. That is the difference between you and most species. Most fight to win. Humans fight because losing is unthinkable. As the summit continued, humanity began to establish its place in galactic society. Trade agreements were signed. Defense pacts were negotiated. Cultural exchanges were arranged. But through it all, there was an undercurrent of wariness. The other species respected humanity, but they also feared them. On the final day of the summit, the Vaxian ambassador requested a private meeting with the human delegation. They met in a small chamber away from the main council. You have done well, the Vaxian said. You have made allies and established your credibility. But I must warn you about something. There are species in this galaxy that will not accept your presence. They will see you as threats to be eliminated before you become too powerful. The Krell were not the only predatory empire. They were simply the first to disco.